This is a medical box, a very vintage medical box. So when we face something like this, we first need to analyze it. Soon we already have some steps from before. We'll do the same thing. We can quickly analyze that this is basically a rectangular box. It has several points. This point is a vanishing point, and this point is also a vanishing point. Then the point below is also in a vanishing point relationship. Now let's look again. Unlike those more regular shapes we drew before, we need to compare bit by bit which occupies which position, whether it's centered or slightly offset to the back. For this irregular shape, we can rely entirely on our eye, but you need to train your eye for this. Then look how this part protrudes here, and then this part recedes. We need to capture this relationship well, the structure of this lid on top, the overall lid structure, is the same approach. Then this side here is also the same. We'll do it the same way, first drawing the perspective line from this box. Now this relationship here isn't right. If it's drawn at this position, in reality it would definitely tilt this way. It wouldn't align with it. If it aligns with it, it must be inside this edge, tucked in a bit. Coming out from this opening, when we draw, we must analyze the overlap. For things like this, you need to analyze the overlapping structural relationships. So roughly just leave it like that. This distance should be a bit longer than this distance. Then this is the center line. Just cut it. Then, if we look at the perspective, you'll notice the horizontal one is thicker and the vertical one is thinner. And this too, don't go straight down in one line. In the middle you can deliberately make it uneven, a bit jagged, staggered. The reason is, it's an old object and it has this leather texture. This looks like a wooden board, so it's not perfectly regular. Once this is done, when we start drawing, don't rush to make the lines too solid or defined. Keep them a bit loose and broken. We can refine them later. This shows the thickness of the leather material. Same here. The edges are serrated with a jagged, bristly texture. Alright, now let's draw out this edge. Then we'll see how to control the curve of the handle. This is the rough line work. Since it has thickness, we need to pay attention and draw it more precisely. It passes through here, so we show that thickness. This curve bulges out. There's a section below, and here's another curve. For this thickness, we'll draw two lines. It's like a double hook technique. Now that we've drawn the main form, we can move on to the details. Okay, now let's look at the shadowed areas and draw those in. But be sure to draw carefully. This is shadow, using this hatching technique. Try to get the lines right in one go. Notice the shadow's shape. It's raised in the middle, so the shadow is wider there and narrower at the ends, because the gap is closer at the ends due to the thickness. Finally, there's also a shadow below here. We can make this one narrower and more direct. Be careful with this lower part. Now, following along this form, let's carefully observe and analyze the shadow relationships. This one includes the cast shadow projecting here, which will extend out. this shadow runs all the way from the top down to the bottom here. Same thing here. And inside here too. This area might be a bit wider. We can place this one closer to this edge. Alright, this one also has a similar treatment here. It's a very narrow edge projection. Notice this detail. It breaks here, then continues. Moving on now. We'll draw this. The main shadow relationship. We can. This plane, looking at the reference, this is the darkest surface, right? And this one too. This diagram is more complex because it has two light sources. The light isn't from one direction. There's a light here and another one coming from behind. Alright, now let's draw this larger one. The large one is hatching. Make the hatching as clean as possible. For areas like this with shadow, we'll cover them directly with hatching. Just place it right on top. Handle this edge carefully. Don't let the lines get messy. The hatching should cut right to the edge, then stop. Keep the small shape defined too. Okay, once this is done, the section below is the same. The density of this section matches the upper half. Just like this. Then this side too. Let me finish the top section first. This upper part needs to be very fine. Light strokes, draw gently, not too heavy. And make it slightly less dense than the lines below. Don't draw it so dense. Space the hatching out more. When hatching areas with shadow like this, we cover them directly. Then go lighter, softer than the edge lines. Gently, barely grazing the paper. Leave the cross mark in the middle clear. Then hatch this area as well, one pass. This one too, same way. Like this then. Now for the middle part here, and then the relationship above. The upper relationship needs more refinement. First this strap, let's draw it horizontally. You could draw the strap vertically, but to separate it from the hatching on this surface, we'll go horizontal. Notice how it fades as it reaches this area. Then on one side, because this strap is leather, then let's draw the top surface. This face also has this feature. There's light and shadow because it has a sense of light in the middle, so I can... Let's also draw this one horizontally. But since it's on top, drawing it horizontally will be very light, so we'll draw it very sparse, meaning draw it very thin. You can draw up to this area here, and then after this part, these areas inside. Give it a slight arrangement. This depth, this contrast completely depends on this. The density of our line work, including its texture. The tree density can also control this kind of color tone feeling. If you control it really well, you can completely do it even better than me, because I haven't deliberately practiced or pursued this line work. Just use this method. Okay, this is basically done. Now let's work on the bottom here. Give it press down the edge. As I mentioned before, when we draw an object, it meets this plane. Let's say the ground, where it meets this ground. The intersection must be pressed down firmly, like this. His kind of three-dimensional feeling will be stronger. In his picture, it looks like there's a reflection. Okay, just like this, and we're done.